And we are live. Hello, and welcome to the very first video edition of That Made Your List. Also, a kind of a mashup episode this week. We've got a That Made Your List meets the New British Empire live. Joining me at the moment, we've got Jacoby Bancroft. Hello, Jacoby.
Hello.
I can actually wave and see and talk to people properly this time.
It's weird. I can't make faces at you now, or like,
unfortunately, no.
Faces out there.
And coming up soon, we will have Thomas Scully when he gets off the phone call that he is currently on.
It's very important phone call that he's on. I think it's like his local senator, like calling about some important bills and everything. He's a very busy guy.
Yeah, he's been networking with people in the NBA, so he's probably discussing his contract for joining that at some point. And
yeah, he's on the other line. It's Dwayne Wade. That's a basketball player, right? Yeah,
something like that. I don't know.
I think so. He needs to be the one to answer those questions. So.
Yes, he does. Okay, yeah. So this is the very first video edition of That Made Your List. We'll be going out. We are live on Facebook as it goes now. We're going on the NBE live. We're also going live on the That Made Your List page as well. So viewers all over the place. So before we get going and go through the questions, the 20 questions you've been set, the standard for That Made Your List, tell myself, because I don't know a great deal about you, and anybody listening that doesn't know you, a little bit about yourself. And while you're doing that, I shall add Thomas.
There he is.
Hello. Sorry, I was on the phone with somebody.
So yeah, Jacoby, tell us all a little bit about yourself.
Right. I am Jacoby Bancroft. I've loved movies for quite some time. My career is in movies. I work in the entertainment industry myself. And there's just something about movies that beats anything else. I mean, I just love watching entertainment and being involved with it. More so than I like sports and playing sports and going outside and being active, because there's just something special about movies. There's so many wide variety of movies, and you can get something new out of any single movie that you watch. And I think that's beautiful. So that's why I love movies.
Fantastic. So you a producer, writer, director? Which side of it? Where? All three?
No directing. I've produced. I have written. I've award-winning movies that should be up there. They're not. No, I work I'm in the independent film landscape stuff. I work for a sales agency and production company, which means on the sales agency side, we take rights for films, and then we go to markets and films, and we sell those rights to territories all over the world. And then we are also our own production house where we make these movies and sell them worldwide.
Wow. Cool. Fantastic. So aside from Jurassic Galaxy, which I started watching on Amazon Prime the other night, what's the biggest film that you've had your little fingers in?
Besides Jurassic Galaxy, there's Jurassic Expedition. But if you're on the American side, it's going to be Alien Expedition.
Okay.
Because renaming things is good. Snake Out of Compton was a fun one. Yeah, Snake Out of Compton. It's the perfect title. It is literally the perfect title. And you can guess what it's about. It's about a giant snake in Compton destroying everything. I'm going to say that one was the most fun.
Okay. And also joining us on this stream, like I say, we got here eventually. We've got Thomas Scully. Hello, Thomas. Welcome to the very first That Made Your List video podcast episode.
I feel so special.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jacoby just bared his soul to the world. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you said, I'm Thomas. I've loved movies since I was a kid. First movie I saw in theaters was the first Harry Potter film, and I was about 3 years old. Actually, no, it's about 2 years old, I think. But yeah, ever since then, I've just been in love with movies, whether it's like Disney animated films, Pixar films, like were my starts. Saw stuff like Incredibles, Cars, Finding Nemo, all in the theaters, and then expanding to more like the franchise, like the Harry Potter, the Star Wars, the comic book films. But yeah, like for the last several years, I've really expanded my horizons to more like, I I wouldn't say adult films because that's not the right thing to say.
Grown up films.
But more sophisticated areas of film. Period pieces, war films are right up my alley. I love a good biopic. Sci-fi fantasy is always good, and I love a good comedy. The 80s comedies is how my dad got me into cinema. Films like Caddyshack, Animal House, like the raunchy 80s comedies like that. That's up my alley too. But movies really are my first love. My first love is actually sports. Unlike a lot of young people in this community, I'm not a film major. I'm not like trying to become a writer, director, producer. I'm a sports management major. I'm trying to work in a sports front office.
Mm-hmm.
But movies I consider them an escape from everyday life, an escape from the doldrums of normal life. Like if I come home, I'm just tired from class, I'll put on a movie.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's great. 1 second.
And that's the smart way to go. to have a different major first, and then go into movies as a hobby.
Yeah, I mean, and I've tried to write some things. I've tried to like write some screenplays for like some stuff. Like I'm currently like in the middle of like a Star Wars Old Republic series. I'm like trying to write a season of. I've been writing that for about a year, so it's not that's just something like a hobby I do on the side. But yeah.
Oh, fantastic, great. Okay, well we'll get into the meat and gristle of the podcast. You both had the same 20-question list that's going on there. Full range of subjects, getting to know your taste in movies a little bit better. We'll start off with the big one, the one that a lot of people tend to bat around with a little bit. But what is your favorite film? We'll start with Jacoby. What's your favorite film?
My favorite film is, I think, a pretty stereotypical choice in favorite films but it's just one that I just love and I rewatch, and I think it really lit the passion underneath me of how well written a movie can be, structurally wise and character wise. It could be funny, action packed, dramatic, everything at all. I can watch it again and again and again. This movie is one that I watched once, like with a friend, and then it's like, what do you want to do next? It's like, do you want to watch this movie again? It's like, yeah. So we watched it twice, and then somebody came over and they're like, what are you doing? It's like, we're watching this movie. What are you going to do now? It's like, well, let's just watch this movie again. So I watched it 3 times in a row. This movie is, of course, Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. That is my favorite movie. I can't get enough of it. I just think it's brilliant in every aspect.
Yeah. It's really good. I think I watched Reservoir Dogs first of his, but Pulp Fiction was I didn't watch them either of them when they first came out. I came into them late, but they were really big. What's your thoughts on keeping him awake? What's your thoughts on Pulp Fiction, Thomas?
I love this movie. This is my favorite Tarantino film. I think the way it's structured is absolutely brilliant. The way he sort of defines every character. He gives every character their own like basic backstory, even if it's just through simple conversation, even if it's just like walking through the hallway. You get so much out of what this character is. And that's just the genius of Tarantino. I mean, that's just what he does best. Yeah. This is the best example of him doing that. I mean, Sam Jackson's character is probably one of my favorite film characters ever. One of my favorite performances ever.
He should have won. He should have won for Jules, because it is Samuel L. Jackson doing Samuel L. Jackson, but like the most Samuel L. Jackson that you can ever imagine. Like it's the epitome of Samuel L. Jackson roles is that one.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, but I love absolutely everything about this movie. I mean, it's not a perfect movie, but it's very close to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay,
last thing I'll say about it is just, I also like behind the scenes of it is what Quentin Tarantino, it started his phase of what he does is take kind of failing actors and bring them back into the spotlight. I mean, like John Travolta at that time was done. Like he didn't have like a whole lot to do after
definitely.
But Tarantino saw him in that and cast him in this, and he had the career resurgence, which is just something that he does nowadays, and I just love.
Yeah.
Also, there's not as much feet in this Tarantino film as there are other Tarantino films.
There's the right amount of feet of Mia Wallace, and it's just like that's an okay amount.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, flipping sides of this then. Thomas, what's your favorite?
So this movie I watched when I was about 15 years old for the first time, and when I watched it, I was like, I was just hit with a brick wall of like, holy shit, this is amazing. It's a historical epic. The kind of film I really enjoy is the whole hero's journey type. You know, the ones you study in like English class, harkening all the way back to the days of like Odysseus and the Iliad and things like that. So those are the kinds of movies I really love, and the movie that embodies this the most is Gladiator.
Oh yeah.
Gladiator is one of these movies where when I watched it for the first time, everything from like the opening battle scene with Hans Zimmer's score to just the quiet moments with Joaquin Phoenix's Commodus and him being so creepy and just eerie towards his sister, it blends together so well, and it's the perfect, you know, hero versus villain story. It's also the perfect redemption story. So it takes all these different archetypes of literature even, and it puts them it elevates them to a cinematic level I don't think I've seen since then. So Gladiator, this is a film I can rewatch and never get bored. I can pick it up at any point in the story and just follow along from there. Also, Joaquin Phoenix should have won for this movie too. I think this is his best performance in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, with Joaquin, I've not seen Joker yet, but I can't think of a.
I saw Joker. He's great in Joker, but I think Joker. Honestly, I think Arthur Fleck's Joker is just an extension of Joaquin Phoenix himself, personally, and it's sort of like the career he's had. Commodus is just a completely different character who Joaquin Phoenix sort of had to become, and just have that the jealousy and the rage of his father loving Maximus more than him.
Yes.
His father not seeing him as a ruler of Rome. Just seeing it all boil into the scene where he literally hugs his father to death.
Yes. Yeah. That scene there when he's.
That's just it's one of the most powerful villain scenes ever, and I just can't get enough of this movie.
Favorite Cameron Crowe? Sorry,
I want to see Cameron Crowe's version of Gladiator.
Cameron Crowe's version of Gladiator. Yes, I've got no idea where I went wrong there. This is why I never ever anything anyway. Just for moments like that. Yeah, Cameron Crowe. And Gladiator was amazing.
I really wish you were in a trivia match, and the question was who directed Gladiator, and you put Cameron Crowe on the board with full confidence.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to ignore that bit completely and move over to what's your thoughts on Gladiator then, Jacoby?
Gladiator, I like a lot. I agree with you. Joaquin Phoenix is the perfect, and he should have won for that role because it is amazing. I like those type of epics too. It's Gladiator's a movie I don't think I would ever think about. It's like, what are your favorite movies of all time? Like that wouldn't come to mind. But it's like when you say, it's like, yeah, that's just a great movie from start to finish. It's perfect. I don't know if I have I've gone back and forth over the years of having a problem with Russell Crowe winning for Best Actor for that role, because I don't think he's like the best that he could be in that role himself. But like then I watch it again, just like he's the perfect epitome of just stone cold fit. Like he's the anchor that it needs for that role perfectly. So like it's back and forth.
He's like the only person I really could envision in that role. Just the fact that he can go stone-faced, no emotion whatsoever.
Right.
That is what a Roman general really is. Like that's how Roman generals have been depicted throughout the years. And the only emotions you really ever see are, when he sees his family burning. That's really the only emotion you see out of all of the entire movie.
Yeah, and then he loses it, and then he becomes the force of like kind of the vengeance of everything to get, which is great. Would you watch the Gladiator sequel that Ridley Scott has been talking about for years?
I think if they take it in the direction where they follow Djimon Hounsou's character, and tell of his journey home as like a former slave, I think it could work. But you can't. But you can't like have it. I don't think you can still have it with Russell Crowe in it. Like you can't do like a Maximus origin story because like I think that would just be ridiculous.
You don't think that you don't want to do his idea of like resurrecting of Russell Crowe and like following him through
because then that defeats the whole purpose of having like a Roman epic.
It really does. It's like it totally changes the tone of
it.
it.
Like unless you want to go full mythology and show him in like the underworld in the afterlife with his family, I guess, and he has to fight Hades or something. But
that doesn't sound like an actual Gladiator sequel. That sounds like a spin-off that other producers like got the rights to and like made their own sequel to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So Peggy in the chat there, we've got Peggy Gubbins. He went for Commodus for a villains draft on other featured presentation show that's on there. He's very, very rarely does he come up when in movie villains, but it's such a powerful.
And I think it's because Russell Crowe won for Best Actor. It's because Russell Crowe is the performance everyone talks about. But I think Joaquin just gives a more complete performance in that movie. Yeah. I like him better in that movie than Crowe, but I still love Crowe in the role.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Two good starts to there. We'll move on a little bit, change of pace here though. But what was the last film that either of you watched? We'll go Thomas.
The last film I watched was purely for studying purposes because I have fandom matches coming up. It's Return of the King.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I was never a huge Lord of the Rings fan up until I was like maybe 15, 16 years.
Mm-hmm. Oh. It's got
15 or what? What was he going
to say? Oh my God. Oh, he's got the Wood syndrome.
Ah, yes, it is.
Yes. You win by TKO.
Yes.
I'm calling it now.
Yeah, I learned from my mistakes. Now cut him off. Yeah, I
win. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to Jacoby. What was the last film that you watched?
The last film that I watched is one that would make, I think, Tony very, very happy. It is, I finally saw The Apartment. From back there. Just the old-time Jack Lemmon movie. And I got to say, it's a good movie. It is creepy as hell. It's a little tough to watch in terms of the context and the subject matter. It's still very funny. Jack Lemmon gives an amazing performance. But it's just like you watch that, just like, man, these old guys are just creepy and disgusting and poor for all these mistresses.
Before I was so rudely interrupted.
Yeah, by the internet. Oh my God. So anyway, we're talking about The Apartment now. Is that another Apartment study one, or are you going through the classics and catching?
So which one?
With The Apartment, is that for any reason, or are you just going through?
I kind of watch more classic movies, just overall, like a lot of the ones I missed, and Tony raves about The Apartment literally all the time, time. So
and if Tony raves about it, it must be good.
Oh yeah, absolutely, because Tony's never wrong about any films. Ghostbusters,
but it was good. Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine just both really good performances, and the villain of that movie is just such a dick, and you hate him. I forgot the actor's name, but yeah, that's the last one I saw.
All right, okay, right. So back to Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. You've not watched it since you were 15, or was it 16?
Yeah.
Or
it was around that age. I was never really a fan of it until then, and that's because I think with Lord of the Rings, it's a more mature type of fantasy epic. It takes more. It takes more effort to try to get into it because it's such an expansive world with all these really tough to pronounce places and terms, and you have to put subtitles on just to even understand what the hell is going on. But once you get into it, it's like the entire trilogy is awesome. My personal favorite is Two Towers, but Return of the King, personally, I think it's a little bit slow in the beginning, but I think once you get to the scene with the Ghost Army and then the battle of the Pelennor Fields in Minas Tirith, the movie starts to pick up. Yes. Granted, that's like an hour and a half into the 3-hour film, but still, I probably would have given. I think it deserved Best Picture that year. I think it was definitely the best out of all the nominees from that year. It wasn't my personal favorite, but we're gonna get to that movie later.
I'm no good, absolutely no good either at trivia or in particular Oscars. But what was it up against for Best Picture.
It was up against Mystic River, Lost in Translation. Trying to think who else.
It was.
If only there's some kind of online reference site we could maybe check while we're trying to.
Don't talk nonsense, Dave.
Don't talk nonsense. No one ever. Hands on the screen at all times.
Yeah. Oh, and then Master and Commander and Seabiscuit were the other two.
Wow. Yeah, I can't see it. As much as I love Lord of the Rings, I think it won the best film there as a combination of the three rather than just for one on its own. I can't.
I would have given if I were to give one of them Best Picture, I would have given Two Towers Best Picture.
I always have such a hard time just because whenever I watch it, the first one to me stands apart on its own. Like that is like its own movie because I watch it. But whenever I watch these movies, it's usually a marathon, and I usually watch 2 and 3 together. So it's like like back to back, and it's like I make it like a whole day out of it. So it's hard to think of Two Towers as its own movie and Return of the King as its own movie when, to me, they blend so well together.
Yes.
I just think that I like to take the extended versions into effect, and there's a lot of scenes in Two Towers where you dive deep into Theoden and the Lord of Rohan.
Yes.
And just the emotion that's conveyed through Bernard Hill's performance as King Theoden, plus his interactions with Éowyn and Éomer, I think make the movie that much more special. I think it elevates it to another level beyond like the characters that we've already established. So taking all that into account, the extended stuff, I think Two Towers is the best one. But Return of the King still, it's fantastic, even though it has more endings minutes in its runtime. It's still fantastic.
No, absolutely, yeah. I'm a massive Lord of the Rings fan. I mean, but it's another one that the extended editions, they build on what was the theatrical release so much, and it adds that extra bit to it. You don't need to watch them, but you get more out of it if you put in the time to watch the extended. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. We shall move on to Jacoby. Let's get this out of the way. What is your favorite action adventure?
Here we go. I know it's coming.
It is. You know it's going to come because you know what movie this is. Kenneth Lee brought it up earlier in the chat because the best and the favorite action-adventure movie of all time is The Mummy. It is literally the perfect action-adventure movie. It has everything you could ever want from a movie like this. It has great action, great humor, great romance, great characters, great comedy, great special effects, great everything. This movie is perfection on every single level. I love The Mummy. The Mummy is the best action-adventure movie of all time. I could watch it literally.
I've never heard anyone go on so much about Tom Cruise's film so much. I'd never realized you were such a fan.
That movie sucks. That movie is bad. That one disgraces the memory of the brilliant Brendan Fraser reboot of this movie. So yeah, I love The Mummy. I love everything about The Mummy. I love how it came to be because originally they wanted to make it a more horror-tinged movie with Matt Damon attached, but then Matt Damon passed, and we got Brendan Fraser instead, and it became what it is today, which is pure perfection, pure fun, pure everything, and it spawned a really great sequel.
Indiana Jones in Egypt, essentially.
Yeah, with Rick O'Connell, who is just the perfect center of a movie. He's not stoic. He's fun. He's romantic. He's suave. He's everything. When I was a little kid, we used to play games on the playground, and it's like whenever we had to pick characters, I always chose Rick O'Connell. So as they call me O'Connell. So I like that movie a lot.
Just 1 second, Garth. I will kick you. I will kick you from this stream.
All right, I got that out of my system.
What's your thoughts on the sequels?
The Mummy Returns, I think, is a very solid sequel to it because I think it's equally as fun. It expands the mythos, gives every character something to do at the end, gives a great payoff to a joke from the first movie with little Alex saying, not knowing the hieroglyphic to the stork hieroglyphic, and Jonathan knowing it from the first movie because he's like, I know this one. It makes Evie kind of come into her own as she was already a cool archaeologist character like before that, but then she also got to get in on the action with her past lives. It ties in with everything. Odith Bay got his own villain with Mr. Echo from The Mummy. The pygmy scene is great. So, yeah, I love The Mummy Returns. And there is no third Mummy movie. So,
Thomas, The Mummy.
I've only seen these movies a couple times. I've seen the first one more than once. I've seen the second and third one only once. I enjoy it a lot. I mean, it's definitely a fun action film. I think Brendan Fraser, I think he was born to play this role, honestly. Rachel Weisz is also good. I'd be lying if I told you I didn't know any other actor that was in these movies.
John Hannah, who is brilliant. Okay, sorry.
But yeah, it's a fun action film. It's one that, you put on. For me, it's one of these films where I put it on when I'm doing like chores around the house. If I'm like maybe cleaning or vacuuming, I'll put it on, look up. Oh, look, The Mummy, Brendan Fraser, yay! And then I'll go back to what I'm doing. But it's a solid film. Easy. It's never a dull moment in this movie.
No, absolutely. It's one of those type of movies, and I don't mean this the wrong way, but you will always find on the UK TV schedule on some point on one channel on a Sunday afternoon, because it's the perfect. You've had your lunch, you've had everything else. Sit back. What can I fall asleep to on the couch? Bang! It's there. It just chills you out, entertains, just to the point where you can just nod off and wake up in time for tea.
Yeah, you get to think, hey, is that the guy from Titanic? No, that's not Billy Zane. That's Arnold Vosloo, who's like Billy Zane's lookalike. So it's just a lot.
Oh, that's right. Arnold Vosloo's in this movie.
Yeah, Arnold, the classic Arnold Vosloo.
He was the great villain in season 4 of 24.
He was I never got to season 4. I just stopped at season 4.
He's the main villain in season 4.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Okay. We'll flip over to the other side of this then. Thomas, favorite action adventure?
I had a hard time with this because I didn't know whether to go with like critically acclaimed or like just a fun action movie. I actually just changed my answer like 5 minutes ago. But the one that really jumps out at me is a film that it screams 90s cheesy action. It's Michael Bay in his early days before he started jacking off behind an IMAX camera. It is 1995's The Rock.
Oh, yes.
The Rock. This movie, now, look, just the cast alone. You have Nicolas Cage, Sean Connery, Ed Harris. Just having those three in the same film, you already know it's going to be kick-ass. And having Sean Connery as like an ex-British agent who has been in prison for like 25 years on like terrorism charges, having him having to try and help these Marines try to get into Alcatraz to free the hostages from the evil U.S. Army people who are doing this just to, like, I don't want to call Ed Harris' character evil because his intentions are good. He wants to provide the families of deceased military veterans with their pensions. He wants to give them more money for the loss of their loved ones, which I think is an admirable thing. Not the correct way to go about getting that money, but you also have, in my opinion, one of the smartest action scenes ever. That's Sean Connery when he's in the interrogation room. Nicolas Cage's character drops a quarter. Sean Connery shifts his chair over, slams his chair leg down in the corner, and sharpens it, cuts himself free, and ends up escaping. Yeah. That is just genius in my opinion. That is just Michael Bay at his best.
What's your thoughts on the room with Sean Connery's character? He's just James Bond that's been done and captured by the American government and thrown in the hole for 25 years.
I don't think that's a terrible theory. However, I do think the characters are completely different. Connery's character in this movie is more emotional. He's more he has a daughter living in San Francisco at the time, and I have a hard time believing Bond, if he had a child, he would know who it is.
That's that point.
But I also don't think Bond would get emotionally. I don't think that Connery's Bond would get emotionally attached to anything other than maybe sex. So I do. While I could see it happening, it would require a major shift in character from the time we see him in Diamonds Are Forever, which is the last Connery Bond film. None other exists. And The Rock. So it would require a major character shift and a lot of heavy exposition, but I do think it could work potentially.
Okay. Jacoby, The Rock?
Haven't seen it.
Shoot yourself.
I know it's on my list of movies. So I'll watch it. I'll watch it soon. Because you hyped it up. I got to see this quarter scene, so it's like I got to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Michael Bay, you're right. He sort of goes off the deep end for a big old chunk of what he was, and kind of forgot about making movies and more interested in making.
He forgot the fun aspect of making these movies. This movie is fun.
Mm.
I mean, there's great car chases. There's fantastic explosive deaths. There's actually quite a bit of emotion in some of these scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And also just having Nick Cage and Sean Connery in the same shot. I mean, their chemistry is brilliant in this movie.
Yeah.
And then Ed Helms' character, while I do think he's overshadowed at times by Connery, he might be my favorite character that's not Sean Connery in this movie. Like the journey that his character takes throughout the film is great.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's good. It's good. We meet with back to Michael Bay. I mean, there was a big chunk where obviously he concentrated on the Transformers franchise, but it's there until the 13 Hours. That was the next one, really. That was what you could call an actual structurally. I'm concentrating on making a movie rather than just going for bangs and smashes and.
But he made Game, which he made Pain and Gain in between that time, which I think is an okay movie.
I mean,
I don't think I've seen it all the way through. I'll be brutally honest. I think
13 Hours. I think wasn't it like a passion project of his or something like that, or he wanted to wanted to tell that story.
Yes.
And while he does use like the classic Michael Bay tropes, like heavy explosions, good visual effects. It does have it is a solid story, but then also he goes off and makes a movie like Six Underground, the new Netflix movie, which while has a good cast and you can't go wrong with Ryan Reynolds most of the time, it's not great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll move on. We'll jump genres and start with Thomas. What's your favorite horror film?
So I'm not a huge horror fan in general. Mm-hmm. I don't like the jump scare. I don't like the whole like things that go click in the night, things that scare you in the night. So my favorite horror film is something that it's older. It's very basic. It's 1978's Halloween. That's my favorite horror film. Yeah. Because it's not like horror films. I think too often they just go overboard with the savagery and the killing and the blood and the gore. And while some people do like that, I'm not a huge fan of it. I just think that's a horror director just jacking off behind the camera, just wanting more blood.
Yeah.
And more gore. But Halloween, I like how creepy it is. How you have the whole suspense of Michael Myers stalking this young woman, just sort of wherever she goes, and then the climactic fight scene, which is problematic for a couple things. Meanwhile, because like both characters honestly should have died in this scene. Like no way does a character survive being stabbed in the eye, and no way does a woman like Laurie Strode end up within 3 feet of this guy 5 times and not get stabbed once. So, but that's the whole. But like, I like how silly it is at times, but also it has a sense of realness to it, as in like a stalker could do this in real life. I think it holds up well as a film. So yeah, that's my favorite horror film.
No, it's definitely one where the score adds to the tension. It builds the tension up beautifully as you're going through. It ratchets up time and time and time again as it's getting closer and closer. I think if you watch that in a house where you turn the sound off, I don't think it's anywhere near as frightening
or doesn't have the same effect, because the music, it's one of those films where it's kind of like Star Wars, or if you don't have the music, the film will not hold up.
I wondered where you were going with that, but okay, you brought that back nicely.
Like Star Wars. Let him finish.
No, that's fantastic. Jacoby, Halloween.
It's good. I guess when I watched it, it was just like, I don't know. It's just like I feel so bad saying that when I say like it feels dated to me. Like I wasn't as scared and creeped out as I probably should, as I wanted to be going into it. I think if I saw it when I was maybe a little younger, or I didn't have such high expectations of this being like the godfather of all horror movies type thing, because it basically is. It jumpstarts like the slasher franchise and everything.
Yes.
I would like it maybe a little bit more, but I think it's just a solid, well-made movie by like an expert in his craft, and I can see why it scared so many people. And why it holds up as one of the best horror movies of all time.
Yeah, I watched it when I was over at a friend's house when I was like 15, I think. And I knew it was critically acclaimed. Like it was, hey, like this is the film to watch on Halloween. So I did, and I loved it. It wasn't too hyped up for me as it may have been for you or some other people.
Yeah.
I think because I didn't hear like rave reviews about it, I ended up enjoying it more.
Yeah, because I just saw it because I'm 26. So I just saw it, I think, when I was like 24 for like the first time. So it's like I still had all these other horror movies that like really scared me first.
Yeah. Have either of you seen the latest one?
Yeah.
I have not.
I dug it. I liked it. I thought it was a good. I remember the Rob Zombie ones. I saw those too. They're like
Halloween 2 is actually really good. I actually do enjoy Halloween 2 a lot.
I like what they do with the character. Like it's like he's at least trying something different and like showing that trauma really can affect somebody in a really horrifying way. Like Strode at that point should be traumatized, and a lot of backlash for that. But I really liked the new one. I mean, it was solid. It wasn't like necessarily as scary, but it was like I just think
it's not a horror. It's not a horror film.
Yeah, it's more it's a thriller, and there's not as many like jump scares. Yeah. And, you look at it, it's like this is fun because like the music is great and everything.
Yeah, it's a nice throwback. It's got the music. It's got the score, which drags you in a little bit more. And also the very end scene. It also almost branches off where you could possibly get your new sort of series of films going off that way. I'm trying not to spoil it if Scully has any plans to watch it and don't want it spoiling. But
it's not high on my list of priority films to watch. But I'll get around to it at some point.
Yeah, it's at that point. Okay, flipping over the screen then.
My favorite horror movie is one. The backstory of this one is I chose Scream as my favorite horror movie, and the reason why I like this movie so much is because the concept of Ghostface terrified me as a kid. Like before I even saw these movies, I saw like maybe bits and pieces. Ghostface gave me nightmares. I had a recurring nightmare as a kid of like arriving at my house. I'm looking in the window and Ghostface is like running through the house, coming at me, and I'm running down the street, and he shows up and he gets me and stabs me. Like I was terrified of Ghostface. I thought he was like this supernatural this being of someone who was it. But then of course I actually watched the second Scream first, like because it was just on TV.
Okay.
And it was okay, but then I realized, it's not a guy; it's just a normal guy. And then I went back and watched the first one, and I loved it because I just think it's what it does for horror. It's a funny horror movie with just these really great characters and a great story and some great performances. I love Matthew Lillard so much in Scream. I think he's so over the top and so fun. So that's why Scream is my favorite.
No, fantastic. This is where I mentioned at the start. It's mine and your lists coincide on this. That I like Scully. I'm not a massive horror fan, but the humour that shines through in this, I really am a massive fan of it. It brings me joy to see someone else like it. Yeah. Scully, Scream, seen them?
I've seen the first one once. I'm not a huge fan of like the slasher jump scares, but I do think that this movie does handle that well. But the reason this didn't connect me is because it's been a long time since I've seen it. I probably should rewatch it again just to see if I still enjoy it as much as I did the first time. But I do agree. Matthew Lillard is great. I think he's a really underrated actor in general. So it's good. Again, I'll have to rewatch it in order to get a full view on what I think about it. But yeah, it's good.
Cool. Yeah, it's really, really clever with Kevin Williams.
Williamson. Is it Williamson?
Williamson. Sure, it's Williamson.
I think it's Williamson. It's like his only good. I thought I liked him a lot, but like any other movie he tries to do, I think just like or any show he tries to do besides Scream, I just don't think is very good.
Yeah, he batted way above average with screaming it, but the writing of it and the way that it plays on the tropes of the teen slashers that came before it, and in one massive jolt reinvigorated the whole genre that came onto that. I Know What You Did Last Summer and so on and so forth, and then spawned its own spin-off parody series as well with Scary Movie.
Yeah.
It's for a film to be able to both kickstart its own genre and start its own spoof genre as well. Pretty well done. Okay.
By Wes Craven, who is like one of the best at what he did when he did.
Yeah. No, definitely. Okay, we'll move on then. We'll jump away from horror and go to something that's a lot broader in general. Jacoby, what's your favorite drama?
Favorite drama? This was a tough one because so many things could be classified as like just a straightforward drama, and I think one that I kept coming back to is the Shawshank Redemption. For everything, just because when you watch that movie, I just structurally and like the way it tells its story, I think it's damn near perfect. Like just like in everything, it has this sprawling kind of epic scope to it, but it's told in a very intimate setting. It's the relationship between Red and Andy Dufresne is just something special. Like there's just something about this movie that maybe on paper it's kind of boring. Like it's like a guy in prison for however long he's in prison for like ever. And it's just like, how do you make a movie that interesting? And it's such a long movie, but like it never gets dull for me. It's always good upon rewatch. It hits you right in the heartstrings at so many right times. So I love Shawshank Redemption. No,
absolutely. It's almost become one of those films where it's required viewing. I think it's a culturally that's well known that. Oh, have you not seen the Shawshank Redemption? Oh, here's my copy. Here's my copy. I'm old. I deal with physical media.
Take all my streaming service passwords. Go on.
Yeah. What do you mean? What do you mean hard copies, Dave?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not in my usual room. I've got a wall with like close to 150, 200 DVDs sitting up there. I am an old physical media type person. CDs, DVDs. Yeah, none of your streaming sites. Curmudgeonly, but no. Scully, Shawshank fan?
Oh, this is the epitome of the genre that's drama. Like, I don't think you could put this into any other category except drama. This, honest, I would have given this film Best Picture over Forrest Gump, to be honest. I mean, I know Jacoby's like Pulp Fiction all the way, but I think this is slightly better than Pulp Fiction, because like you said, there's never a dull moment in this movie. It takes a premise that on the outside seems dull. Like, again, it's a guy in prison who's wrongly convicted. Well, we've seen this movie before like 100 times. There's nothing like Shawshank Redemption. I mean, in Shawshank Redemption, actually, in a way, it spawned a lot of these wrongly convicted prison films, but none of it has ever. No film or TV show has ever been able to recreate what Shawshank did. The character of Andy Dufresne is one of the easiest characters to root for in a film, in my opinion. Then you have Morgan Freeman's Red, one of the best supporting characters ever. Even the evil warden. I mean, I can't remember the actor's name, but he's also in 24.
Everyone 24 at some point. Like everyone.
Exactly.
Always.
But is such a great villain, and I wouldn't even call. Yeah, he's a villain, but he's not like the main antagonist. Like the main antagonist is injustice, and it's like the system. It's the system that wrongly convicted him. That's the villain, and another villain would be like the prison that tries to hold him in. And at the end, spoiler alert for the two of you who have never seen it, he gets out, and it's one of the most rousing moments in film. So. Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's so sad.
And Tim Robbins is great too in this.
He is, because as you said, he's so easy to root for, but like he's so cold. Like it's such a weird character that it's so easy to root for, because he's not your typical type of protagonist. Like he's just very quiet.
And that's why I think he's so easy to root for, because he's not typical. I like protagonists who are like different from the old plucky, optimistic kind of, happy-go-lucky vibe.
Yeah.
Like if there's a protagonist who can be sort of cold and calculating at the same time, sign me the fuck up, personally.
It's so great how they tell that story because he is cold and distant, and that's why everyone thinks he did kill his wife, and that's why it's so easy to convict him. Because I think it's just he didn't say a word the whole trial, of everything. It was so easy to think that he did it, but once you get to know him, you realize that he's just quiet, that he's thinking, he's always calculating, but he really cares, and he has this huge heart, and he really loves his wife and everything. I love him.
If being quiet means you killed your wife, then I've killed a lot of people.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yes. With this one, there was when obviously Morgan Freeman, the whole joke about why you called red and it's just because I'm Irish. Clint Eastwood, Harrison Ford, Paul Newman, and Robert Redford were all considered the role of him because in the book, Stephen King's book, he's a middle-aged white Irishman with red hair.
Right.
That's why he's called red. It's because the source material says so.
But I think Morgan Freeman was sort of the perfect guy to play it because you've seen in films like Glory, Unforgiven, he's sort of the perfect complementary character to the main protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
While I think all of those guys would have been great for the role, I don't think anybody could have embodied it as well as Freeman did.
Yeah, that speech at the end that he gives of just I don't give a damn is just so good.
So powerful.
Yeah.
I think from those, I think Clint Eastwood would have been the next best choice for it as the gruff.
See, you need Red because Red is very. I think Robert Redford would have been the second best choice because you need to have that easiness to him, kind of Red's just I'm the guy who can get you what you want. If Clint Eastwood said I'm the guy who can get you what you want, I'd be terrified.
Yeah, you can get you what you want.
That's a fair point. Okay. Best Stephen King screen adaptation?
Yes.
Okay.
You don't think it's Stephen King because it doesn't involve people being killed or mortally wounded.
Yeah. Oh, okay, fantastic. We've done. Oh no, we've not done both those. Scully. Oops, nearly passed you by completely with that one. What's your favorite drama?
Like Jacoby, I had a really hard time with this, so I ended up choosing a film that can be classified as drama, but can also be classified as a couple other things. It's a movie when I watched it for the first time, I was lost. I had no idea where the hell this movie was going. Mm-hmm. But on a rewatch a couple years ago, I finally understood it. I finally was able to piece together all the parts of this film. It's Inception.
Ooh.
I love it for the drama elements, not necessarily like the sci-fi and the whole dream within a dream aspect, but the dramatic elements surrounding Dominic Cobb, Leo DiCaprio's character, I think elevates this movie to a monumental level. Yep. Just the guilt that he feels knowing that him exposing his wife to Inception is what led to her death. Mm-hmm. Him trying to redeem himself through all these various ways by helping Mr. Saito steal business secrets from Cillian Murphy's character. I just think that's it's such a great way to depict a sort of a redemption arc. It's a great way to try to have this guy be integrated back into society. And it works because at the end on my rewatch, when he sees his kids again, I was openly weeping. I was a blubbering mess of a human being at the end of that film when he sees his kids again. And that's just Nolan relaying the dramatic elements of his character so well.
Yeah.
Marion Cotillard's performance should not be discounted. I think she gives a great performance as Cobb's wife. Her first of which starts her trend of being like the crazy bitch in the Nolan film
movies. Yeah.
But yeah, I think her performance as well adds to this. The only knock on it is I would say it overshadows all the other great performances in this film, like Tom Hardy, Justin Gordon-Levitt, Ellen Page. They all take a backseat to Leo's performance and his arc, but I think it pays off so well in the end because in the end, the movie's about him. It's about nobody else but him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It does. It is the one that you do have some really good performances. Like Tom Hardy this is what put Tom Hardy on the map as like this kind of charming dude and brought him into like the mainstream. Joseph Gordon-Levitt totally plays against type. It's not like the charming, happy-go-lucky dude, but he's very stone cold and very out of it as like Arthur. So it's a really good performances for all of them. But you're right, Leo and Marion just give really fantastic performances. And I also like Ken Watanabe. I love it.
Oh God, I love that dude so much. He's gonna come up again in a movie I have on the list, but I'll fully dive into the genius of that man a little bit.
We'll talk about Ken later on then. Okay, fantastic. Any other comments on Inception?
Do you believe that? Because I know there's never an answer to Inception, right? Like, because it's supposed to be one that you're supposed to interpret. But do you believe the theory that the top is not actually his totem, that it's his wedding ring that he wears for everything it's not even a wedding ring, it's a ring on, but it's like it's a wedding ring that's his totem. And that's how you as an audience can distinguish what's real and what's not. Because in the dream world, he's wearing his wedding ring, and in real world, he's not.
Yeah, and I do agree with that because at the end he's definitely not wearing it, and you can that was actually something I noticed like on my rewatch. Like, okay, well he's not like I paused. I was like, okay, he's not wearing the ring. That means the kids are real, and I can now cry in peace.
Yeah, now
so
yeah.
No, fantastic. And Jacoby, thank you. You stole my question. You stole my line. I'd bring it up at exactly the same point then.
Oh, you're going to ask that question?
Yeah.
I should be running the show.
Sorry. Damn you. Curses. No, fantastic. Okay, any others? Anything else on Shawshank? Anything else on Inception?
Great movie.
Yeah, two very, very good choices. Yes. Okay.
This next one.
Yeah. We'll jump genres. Again, and we'll go. What's your favorite comedy, Scully?
Ooh, so this one. So like I said at the beginning, my dad definitely got me into watching like these old 80s raunchy comedies. And the one that always stuck out to me, my favorite comedy of all time, it's Caddyshack. It's always been Caddyshack. Just the subtle humor of all the characters and just the antics they all get into. Like Bill Murray is the standout here, and his master's golf monologue while like raking the flowers, one of the best comedic monologues of all time. But you also have Ted Knight as Judge Smales. Rodney Dangerfield is hysterical in this movie, and Chevy Chase, he's just being Chevy Chase. I mean, and just the stories of how, on the set, like everybody but Ted Knight was like all crazy and like ruckus, and Ted Knight was the only one who was actually sober and not stoned during like the filming of this movie. It just adequately describes the world that Caddyshack was built in. Even like the subtle jokes like, "Oh, Your Honor," when he's talking to the judge and having him hit. It's just subtle comedy like that just makes me crack up every single time. It doesn't age well, I will admit. It's very stuck in the 80s. It's very stuck in that era. Mm-hmm. But every time I watch it, I just don't care. It's hysterical every single time. And it's one of the first movies my dad and I bonded over, so it has that effect on me too.
That's fun. Caddyshack. I've seen it like I think twice, and I like it. Again, it's just like that subtle humor. It's just like something that just doesn't work for me, I guess, as much as I'm sure if I watch it maybe again now, because I haven't seen it in like a few years, maybe I would like it more. Just I don't know, something about it. Just I like it a lot. Just it doesn't click with me as much as I wish it did.
That's fair.
Oh, Dave, you're muted.
Dave's muted.
Dave forgot to switch his mute back off. Yes, there we go. By his very nature, as I just eloquently put while I was on mute, comedy by its very nature is subjective. So if it's, as you say, it's stuck in the 80s, but for those that are, a little bit older than me, that is their humour. That's the humour that they grew up with. So my uncles, my older brother, and so on and so forth, which should probably be your parents, their age. That's the kind. That's where I'm pitching myself, just below your parents. That's probably the humour that they call it. You say, Scully, it was the film that your dad introduced you into comedy with. It's probably bang right in that, and he probably put it down with films, and he'll be in floods of tears and stitches, hysterics again.
Yeah,
watch it to my kids, they're going to look at this and go, "Why on earth are you showing me this POS?"
and going off of what Tony just said, Dangerfield.
Who?
Tony.
Sorry. Sorry. In that, there we go.
The Dangerfield just roasting everybody. That is just Rodney Dangerfield being Rodney Dangerfield. He is literally just looking at somebody and roasting the shit out of them on camera, and it just adds to for every actor, whether it's Bill Murray or Rodney Dangerfield, Ted Knight, or Chevy Chase, they all play like an extension of themselves in this movie. And that's what I love just most about it. Is like all the actors, they're basically playing extensions of themselves, and it just works. It works so well.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's good to say. It is one of for a generation that you won't have fixed it out on your own. You've got to be introduced to a film like that. But yeah, it's
like, even if you're my age, if you haven't seen it, just watch it and realize that this was the world your parents grew up in. You and your friends were raunchy and crazy when you were 16 or 17. Your parents were a lot worse than you. Just gonna put that out there right now.
Oh yes. Okay. Before we start going down into whose parents are raunchiest, let's drop over to Jacoby. What's your favorite comedy?
All right. Well, okay. I could have chosen a classic comedy. Like I could have chosen Ghostbusters because that movie is fantastic.
It's a classic comedy.
It is, Tony. It is a classic comedy. But I went with something that's way more recent. That's surprising. That I think is one of the best movies of 2018 and one of the best comedies of all time because of its era, and that is Game Night. I freaking love Game Night. It is so surprising and clever and just innovative with its filmmaking and its subject matter. It's a movie that you think is stupid. It's just like, it's Jason Bateman doing his Jason Bateman shtick with a really broad premise of Game Night. But it turns into this like really legit murder mystery. And I think the best thing about Game Night is that it's filmed like it's a legit drama mystery. Like there's a lot of like a horror movie. It turns like with it, like its camera angles and everything, but it's populated with these really clever characters. And the reason why I picked this one out of everyone is because I had a similar feeling of watching 21 Jump Street back in like 2012. It's a movie that you go into with like literal no expectations that you think is everyone in the chat. Yes, I chose Game Night. It's because you go into this with these really low expectations. For everything. Like you don't think the premise is going to work, but then it delivers and then it surprises and it gives like this really great story, everything. I almost picked 21 Jump Street for that same aspect, but I went with one that's even that was more near and dear to my heart because of recency bias, I'll admit, but it's Game Night. Game Night is the best comedy. I just wanted to talk about Game Night for a bit.
If I don't think that movie 21 Jump Street, I could have let you off with it, but
yeah,
my word.
It is great. Jesse Plemons, all-time fantastic performance as the creepy neighbor. Rachel McAdams comes back to comedy and proves that she should do comedy so much more. The couples played by Sharon Hogan and Billy Magnuson is just a comedic tour de force. And then Kyle Chandler as the brother. Their rivalry with Jason Bateman is great. And just the story is clever. It's well written. It's fun. It's dramatic. And no, Tag is not good, Aaron Brooks, but or Tony. Yeah.
Okay, now there is a reason. There's a little bit of a backstory here. There is a reason why the podcast and the stream is called That Made Your List. It's normally got question marks on the end of it. And it usually comes up for a question that's later down the list. The genre that is comedy.
Yeah.
Game Night made your list?
Game Night is hilarious. It is so funny. Every character gets a chance to shine and say just a really hilarious one-liner. And that's hard to find in a lot of comedies. And it's structured with a great story. Like Tag has some funny moments, but its story is a little wrong. Like it's just the story is a little tough. That's why Game Night is better. Yes, that made my list.
Sorry, I'm counting all the movies that have every character having a great one-liner. But look, I've seen Game Night once. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was gonna. I do agree Rachel McAdams should get into comedy more. But you could have if you want to pick Rachel McAdams comedies, pick Wedding Crashers or something. Like
I do love Wedding Crashers.
Like, but out of all the comedies even out of all the comedies of this decade, you chose.
It's I think all the one on this list is great. Like if I had my favorite, I chose Clue. Clue would have been up there as Aaron just said. Like Clue was almost a contender, but no, I went with one that's more recent. That's clever that you don't expect to be as good as it is, and that's why
this is worse than Caleb Coho filleting La La Land. I think
it is not. It is probably worthy of it.
And that is also why I say comedy is such a subjective genre for it. I got a feeling we're not going to be the last you'll hear of this being your favourite comedy, Jacoby.
Well, I'll die on this mountain too. I will defend you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, what we'll do is we'll jump away from comedy then, and we'll move on to something that's kind of similar. But Jacoby, give me a film that makes you happy.
What makes me happy? It's so like I had to really evaluate happiness. Like really
Schindler's List probably at this point.
Really makes me happy. You know, that scene with the red dress. It's the one that makes me really happy is The Truman Show. Out of everything, because just the way that it builds to just such a cheer-worthy ending is just amazing. Like it's so earned. It makes you feel. You see him fighting for it. Like when Ed Harris is sending the waves at him and he's yelling at it. It's like you're gonna have to kill me, and then he makes it there, and he has that final choice to either leave or stay, and then he goes against God per se, and he's going to make his own destiny and be free will. It's like there's just no happier moment in my life when you just go, yeah, you're cheering along with everyone there. So Truman Show makes me really happy because it's one of Jim Carrey's best performances.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely. It's another one that just is home on the Rushmore Mountain of dramas as well.
Yeah,
it's up there. It's one of those ones that nobody who watched it, as far as I'm aware, nobody who's watched it is ever goes, oh no, don't like that.
Yeah,
it's a good film.
I agree with what Aaron just said. It's like Truman Show makes me sad, like happy, sad. Like it was tough to really. I had to really think about like, does this make me happy or does this make me sad? But just because of its ending, it's like it's happy. Like I'm happy at the end of it.
Yeah, builds to a beautiful, happy crescendo. Indeed, yes. Scully?
Yeah, I agree. You can have sad elements of a film all throughout the film, but it's not like. If it ends on a high note, it can make you happy, and I do agree. It's been a couple of years since I've seen this movie, so I'll probably have to give it a rewatch at some point. But yeah, I agree. The ending is fantastic. It's exactly what you want to have happen, and it's one of these movies that you're just satisfied with. When the film ends, you're like, wow, that was really good. That was a great ending. I loved how it ended. This is exactly what I wanted. I'm happy as a client.
No, fantastic. Jim Carrey as straight guy. I take the count wrong in a dramatic role. Is he better with the dramatic roles, or is he better when he started with the comedy?
Personally, I think Jim Carrey in comedic roles can get a little. I personally think that if I watch it for too long, I get a headache in terms of comedy.
Yeah.
I think when he goes above and beyond the comedy, it's a little absurd at times. When he does dramas, I like him even more because you have films like that.
The Majestic.
Yeah. Oh my God! Thank you. The Majestic. The Majestic is a very underrated film. He gives a great performance in that movie. I think my favorite monologue of his is in The Majestic. That's my favorite Jim Carrey monologue ever. Also, something like Eternal Sunshine. I'm not a huge fan of that film, but I loved his performance in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Popper's Penguins, of course. No, I'm kidding.
No, that's actually a good movie. Like that's another one. You go. I agree with him on that one because it's like that's actually a surprisingly good movie.
Yeah. But yeah, I do like his dramas a lot more, just because when it comes to comedic actors, a lot of them, when they go sort of above and beyond in terms of the comedy, it gets annoying. But you take someone like a Robin Williams, he's so good at comedy, but his dramas were just so much better. I think Jim Carrey's the same way. I think Adam Sandler's the same way as well. His comedies are great, but him in a dramatic role is even better.
Yeah.
Am I the only person that's ever watched Number 23 with Jim Carrey?
We all forget about that movie. Because we don't want to.
I'm the only one that remembers
It's trying to be a weird horror thing, and that movie's awful.
That was not good. That was not good. Okay, fantastic. Let's flip it over then.
Wait, yeah.
Yeah, flip it over. Scully, what's your favorite? What's your film that makes you happy? Sorry.
So I said before, sports are forever my first love.
Mm-hmm.
One, this is a sports film. Makes me happy on so many levels, especially at the end. It's 2004's Miracle. This movie is it's perfect, really. It's the perfect sports film. If you don't know, it's the story of the 1980 U.S. men's hockey team. They're formed out of a ragtag group of college hockey players, and it's basically two factions of players from Boston and players from Minnesota, and they hate each other. Then you have the coach, Herb Brooks, whose job is to bring them together and make them work as a team in order to try and win the gold medal at the Olympics, which they hadn't done in 20 years. And then the whole game against the Soviet Union, like, you know what's going to happen, but the way it's executed is so great. And the ending with the music plus Al Michaels saying, "Do you believe in miracles?" Yes. You just want to stand up and like run through a brick wall. Like, you are just so hyped and so happy at that moment. And then the best part about that moment is that it slowly dies down, but then it shows you like okay, that happened, but then they won the gold medal, and then it shows them on the podium accepting the gold medal, and then the last shot is them all standing on the podium as a team, hoisting up like a number one as like, hey, we did it, and the coach is just looking on. It's one of the best endings to a film I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Makes me happy on so many levels. It's a film that cures depression, in my opinion.
Okay.
Like, so I believe it's on Disney Plus right now. If you're having a bad day, go watch Miracle. It's a very inspirational film. Makes you happy at the end. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. Jacoby, sports films.
Sports. No, I love it. I agree. I just like, again, I love the Mighty Duck franchise. I love those a lot. And Miracle, it's one I remember bits and pieces. I don't know why the scene that stands out to me, because I think I only seen it like twice when I was like younger. The scene that stands out to me is when he makes them run, because of it. You see it in the game because they're talking about pretty girls in the crowd and they're not focused. And he makes them run afterwards. I don't know why that scene just really stands out for me. Like,
that's a scene that is just purely Kurt Russell just diving all the way into his role. I think he should have gotten award nominations for this role personally. But that scene, that's not necessarily happy, but like that just makes you go, wow, wow.
Yeah. So I want to watch it again. I really do.
I think I've probably seen it once, but like I said, bear in mind that neither ice hockey nor sports films are particularly big over here. It may well have passed me by, but it kind of rings a bell. It might have been one I've watched at some point and just kind of forgot about. But
Gavin O'Connor, as Garth just says, Gavin O'Connor did Miracle. I did not know that.
He did.
Gavin O'Connor's good at sports movies.
He is. I think he brings the best out of. I think he chooses his movies well.
Yeah,
and he's able to just put his mark on it. His Warrior is also phenomenal.
It's a great movie.
Okay. Any other point on Truman Show or Miracle, gentlemen? Okay, let's flip this onto its head, Dave, and go, Scully, what's something that makes you sad?
I am a huge fan of war films, and my favorite war film of all time is also one that just the emotional toll of it is monumental. It's Saving Private Ryan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just the first 15 minutes, the Battle of Omaha Beach that's just you just don't feel emotion except for like you're just stuck there in your seat like, what am I watching? But the movie just sort of takes you on a journey, and then at the end, when Tom Hanks's character pretty much sacrifices himself so Private Ryan can live, that's just. If you haven't seen this movie,
a 20-year-old movie,
fight me. But that moment is just, it's sad, but it's sort of it's kind of a happy sad because you understand. You understand why, and you understand how we got to this point because the movie is just so well structured. It's Spielberg's, my opinion. It's honestly it's my favorite Spielberg. In my opinion, it's my favorite Spielberg film. I just think because that's a film that Spielberg wanted to make his entire career, and he put so much heart and soul in this movie, only to lose Best Picture to Shakespeare in Fucking Love. But it's a film. It's not like one that you're gonna go cry in the shower for 25 hours after it, but it's more of a happy sad. You're happy to feel these emotions of sadness after the film, and you're just, the movie just makes an impact on you. So I'd say it's short-term sadness, but long-term you look at it and it's like, that was beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, that opening 15 minutes, when I always remember looking back and reading about this, Spielberg at the viewings before it released, it had a load of veterans come to watch the viewing, and someone walked out, and he was in the foyer catching up with him. He says, have I done something wrong? Have I upset you? He said, no, I just can't live it again. I was there. You've captured it so well.
Well, because he said that he used to listen to his dad's old army buddies talk about the war and just hear the emotion in their voices talking about all the friends they lost in the war, and he used that to capture the emotion of the film.
Yeah, but
that first 15 minutes is probably one of the most well-directed sequences of all time. Like that sequence itself is one of the best around.
No, it's it's one of those ones that you're right. It's a thankful sad. You come to the end of it and you're like, he's made that ultimate sacrifice, and that line is, "Tell me I've been a good man."
And the scene where it shows like the older version of Private Ryan standing in front of his grave.
Yes.
That moment, it's like, it's just so powerful, and it's sad, but it's a happy sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, Tony Heald.
You know what?
Do you want to see it? Do you want to see it?
They're different. They're different movies. Like.
Oh, Tony, no.
It's just another one of these cases where I just want to drop kick him off the bridge.
Oh dear. Okay. Moving over then. Jacoby. What's the film that makes you sad?
This was another one that's like I had to go back for like happy sad. Like is it more happy sad or is it more sad happy? And that it's and I don't think more on the side of sad. And the movie is Dead Poets Society. It's one that it's just like that. Just no matter how many times I watch that movie, no matter like how many times, I will always tear up and cry at that ending. Like even if I just Google the ending by itself and watch it separately, I will tear up because that is just a gut punch of an ending that just makes me cry. Where it's like I'm processing all these emotions of just like, yes, it's like it's so inspiring that they're standing up on his desk, but the circumstances surrounding that is just so sad because he did so much for these students. He did everything for the students. He taught them how to live their life in a way to follow their dreams. And it got one of them to commit suicide because of his dad, and they blamed him for it. And then you can tell just Ethan Hawke is his best performance. You can tell like the anguish on his face of doing it, and the way that ending and it just destroys me no matter how many times. Dead Poet Society.
I mean, you look at Good Will Hunting, Good Morning Vietnam. This is the best performance Robin Williams has ever given, in my opinion. This is his best performance. I think looking back in this movie now, it's 10 times as sad. You know, like I watched it after he died, and I was 10 times the mess I was when I originally watched it.
Yeah,
just he is the ultimate protagonist. He does everything right. He makes the right decisions. He steers these boys in the right direction, but the world that they live in paints him to be the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sad and you're angry because that's just so unfair to all the work he's put in to make them better men, better citizens to society for what he's doing. Like, I was never a big art or literature person, but after watching that movie, I had a greater appreciation for all of that in general, because stuff like that is what makes life beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's one of those movies where, like, it just makes you look at life in a sort of wider aspect. And again, you're so right. The movie just destroys you at the very end because he did everything he could, but it just wasn't. It, like, no matter how much he did, it would never be enough.
And he would never blame the boys either. Like, even when he got fired, you can tell that he knows he was trying to calm them down when they were all saying, it's like, it's okay, everything's fine. Like, it's okay, guys. And like the look on his face when he's just like, when you can tell when he realizes he made such an impact on these boys, when they're all standing on the desk, and the final line of that movie is like, thank you, boys. Like, it's just devastating, especially compared to when you realize it's like, yeah, it's art imitates life in terms of like Robin Williams did that for like us, like for just
for so many people.
Everything, like you want, like all the. I remember like Jimmy Fallon's tribute, like to Robin Williams, would ended with him standing on his desk saying like, "Oh, Captain, my Captain." It's just so sad.
Yeah,
no, absolutely. Because again, two films there, where one where gets to Saving Private Ryan, and yeah, you're sad because you're so thankful that someone's gone through that, and in real life that they've gone through and done that for us. And then with this one, you're sad, but it's an inspirational sad. And again, the Robin Williams, how his life was tragically ended so short, it brings through, and watching now it just adds to the sadness again with it all. But yeah, there you go. Aaron Brooks is acting. Robin Williams have only gotten sadder with time, purely simply because you know what's going on behind his smiles as well with them all. But
yeah. That he's the saddest out of all, like out of everyone of all his movies.
Yeah. Okay, we'll try and bring the tone up a little bit. We'll flip it over, flip it around a little bit. Jacoby, name a film you practically know the entire script of.
Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me is my answer.
It
is one of those that I didn't realize. Like, I watched so much as a kid. Like, I watched it, like it was my family's favorite movie. It's just like one of my favorite movies. I watched that relentlessly, and it's one that I rewatched about like a year ago. Like just I was like, oh, I love this movie. I haven't seen it in years. I want to watch it again. And I found myself just like, it's this line, it's this line, it's this line. It's just like, oh shit! Like, I know this movie like a lot, like because I watched it a lot as a kid. So it was a surprising thing to realize I know almost the entire script of it, but. Austin Powers, Spy Who Shagged
Me. Can you and Tony just reenact the scene in the tent where she's pulling objects out of the bag?
We have before, yeah. So it's great. I don't know.
Be your next promo. Just you, like your butt in one camera and Tony just pulling objects.
Yeah,
out of like the corner.
That needs to be done. The next INH match.
and I get it that like. That a lot of people like International Man of Mystery more just because it's the first one, and a lot of the jokes in Spy Who Shagged Me are kind of just repeats of the ones like exactly like you said, like the tent scene is kind of just a repeat of what happens in International Man of Mystery. But because I think I saw Spy Who Shagged Me first, it just connects with me like so much more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's they. I love the Austin Powers ones. Purely simply because the Bond parody-esque of it and everything else, yeah, I really enjoy them. I've not watched them so much as I can know the script, but there's definitely some that I do know. But, yeah, Scully, thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know the script word by word, but like there are lines which I can just predict. Like once I hear one line, I can probably finish it. But yeah, this is the best Austin Powers film. International Man of Mystery. Well, while it's good, it doesn't do as much for me as the second one does. But the second one is just so good. It's really good. It takes the jokes from the first one and elevates it, and that's what makes it better.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Fantastic. And say this is one of those questions where you can kind of catch up a little bit of time because you can't really dive too deep into knowing a script or not. So we'll jump over to the next person. We'll go Scully. What's the film you know the script of?
Definitely the first two Harry Potter films. I mean, I watched those religiously when I was a kid. The first two films, especially Chamber of Secrets, I like literally I could word for word keep up with the film for like the entirety of the film. It's gotten to the point where my family will not watch the movie with me because I will just incessantly.
Oh, you're one of those people.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. Like the scene where Ron opens the howler in the Great Hall and Molly Weasley is screaming at him. I can do that word for word, like same tone, same pitch. Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. So, note to self: do not watch any of the first two Harry Potter films with me.
Okay.
Or you will drive yourself insane.
Fair enough. I mean, for me, it's the original Star Wars trilogy. They were the ones I grew up with, and I've watched time and time and time again. My wife will not sit down next to me. Yeah.
No reward is worth this.
What's this? Oops.
Just have confidence in yourself, man. You know.
There you go.
Come on. Jacoby's the better manager here, but like no.
I'll agree.
All right, okay. We'll jump back into the genre questions now with, and we'll stay with Scully for who is your favorite director? In fact, actually, we'll jump into this here because Jacoby, what's your favorite director?
My favorite director. This is a tough one. Chose Christopher Nolan. I just think his film.
And that's exactly what
Nolan.
Yeah, just because we can agree, his films are just these dense, smart, intelligent, well thought out stories that you just don't see nowadays. Like that, every part of it is just this. Is you can tell it's so complex and so deep and it does something to it. And like he can basically do no wrong at this point. Interstellar was just okay, but I still respect the craft that went behind Interstellar to make a movie like that.
When your weakest film is Interstellar, a film that sort of transcends the sci-fi genre and brings it to a whole nother level as a whole, if that's your weakest film, that's insane. Like. When you like, yes, and like I do have issues with Interstellar, like the pacing of it, and while the visual effects are great, the performances are good. Just the story itself doesn't live up to the effects and the performances. But films like again Inception, one of my favorite films ever. The Dark Knight, one of my favorite films ever. The Prestige is so slept on. Memento is fantastic. Batman Begins is amazing. Dunkirk. I know not a lot of people may enjoy Dunkirk. I fucking love Dunkirk. Dunkirk was my favorite film of 2017. I would have voted for that for Best Picture personally.
Yeah.
Just because what Nolan does with Dunkirk is he makes an hour and 45-minute war film with about maybe 40 lines of dialogue, makes it feel like a 3.5-hour epic.
Yeah.
And like the movie just. Time is a flat circle in that film, and he like all the different storylines. He pieces it together so well. You just think it's one. It just flows so well, and that's the beauty of Nolan. Like he can do something like Tarantino, where he breaks it up into like 4 different stories, but then makes it so it's flawless. Mm-hmm. He makes just the flow of the film it just works so well.
I love how he's unapologetic about complex things. Like trust that the audience who will search out his movies will figure things out. Because sure, some of his movies are confusing for like a lot of people, but it's like even like Dunkirk, like how it's told, its timeline is all shifted. Like Cillian Murphy shows up like before, and you have to be like, oh, this is happening before when we see him there. Like there's no heavy-handed explanation to really hit the audience over the head with this is what's happening. Everything. He's like, he just expects you to keep up with that. And he trusts that his audience are smart enough to kind of stay at that level.
And that's a smart strategy because like, as me being someone who didn't understand Inception the first time, I still enjoyed it so much without understanding a whole lot of it to go back and watch it again. And on a rewatch, understood it fully. I mean, and that he makes his film so complex and intriguing that even if you don't understand it the first time, you're going to go back and watch it again because you want to understand it. He makes his audience want to understand him. he's one of these directors where he basically forces the audience to conform to him, whereas a lot of directors could just conform to their audience. And that's having balls of steel right there. Yeah. His least complex movie is Dark Knight Rises, and even that movie is badass.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take out the 98, which is his first feature film, with The Following, which I'll be brutally honest, I didn't know about until I just IMDb'd it just to make sure I got all the films on it.
I watched it. It's solid.
It's solid. I've only seen it once. It pales in comparison to his other films.
Yeah.
But it's still a good directorial debut.
Yeah. But then you go after that. Between 2000 and 2017, Memento, Insomnia, Batman Begins, Prestige, Dark Knight, Inception, Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar, Dunkirk. There's not a bad film.
Insomnia is so slept on. Insomnia is a great mystery thriller. You have Al Pacino as this sort of like aging detective. Robin Williams is the antagonist. And also Tenet. My most anticipated film of 2020 is Tenet. I am so hyped for that film.
What I'm so afraid of, and what it keeps me, is that is there going to be a point where, because where he can miss, because like expectations for each new Nolan film is so high because of what happens. You know,
I wouldn't be mad if he was something if it was something like Tarantino, where he only makes a set number of films. Like, honestly, if he made Tenet and he just admitted like, all right, well, there's really not any sort of foray. There's really not sort of any other genre I could successfully think I can go into. I'm going to take a break for a little bit until I get my creative juices flowing. I'd be okay with that, because I don't want a director I love to rush into another genre of film and end up like tarnishing his image because he wants to just rush into something. Yeah. So I think Tenet, he's getting into the whole like spy genre. I think like the next thing he could get into is maybe crime, but you kind of already have that with Inception, because that's for like a heist film, pretty much.
Yeah, he's done the cop genre with both Memento. Really, that's kind of the crime sort of twisted head.
Memento and Insomnia are both sort of cops.
Yeah, he's done the crime with
The Prestige is kind of like the thriller / horror vibe.
Yeah, superhero films. Tenet is there. The only thing that's left for him to do is Bond, which he is a massive fan of.
If he did a Bond film, I would have a stroke. Yeah, I would legit have a stroke. I would die right here now if he announced he was doing a Bond film.
It would be so crazy to think, because after this Daniel Craig's done, they're going to do a new Bond. If they start off whatever new era of Bond with a Nolan style film, that would be crazy. That would be so tough, because I don't think because you know how they switch directors almost every time. It's like it's going to be hard to follow a Nolan Bond film, because it's going to be so different and so unique.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm getting sweats just thinking about it.
the idea would be good. We've reached number 10. We've reached question number 10 out of 20. I am going to call an audible. I'm going to call it there for this week. We'll come back and do another week, because you've got things to do. I've got things to do. It's 6:30 in the evening here, and I've got dinner. I've got to start getting ready.
It's half time.
It's half time. Yes, we'll be back. We'll be back. We will pick this up. We'll finish off the second half of the list and get everyone back in here. Before you go, a little bit of housekeeping.
In the two parts. This is a 2-part episode.
We're special that way.
Put it this way, when I first started doing this, I originally had 25 questions on the list when I first started doing this. And I was thinking, it'll take about an hour. The first one took close to 2.5 hours. I put it down to 20 questions, and it still came in around 2 hours. So I started done this since I took a break. I started doing 2 episodes per person, and I figured if you guys are doing it, we're going to be close to 4 hours. So we'll cut it an hour and a half. That would do perfect for an NBE live. It would do perfect for That Made Your List. So Aaron walked in on this. Aaron, hit me up. I will get you on this show. Absolutely no problem. A little bit of housekeeping on my end on this. That Made Your List is normally an audio podcast. You can catch it on iTunes and Podbean. Just search That Made Your List. It's usually got 3 question marks on it, but I don't know. We are on Facebook on That Made Your List. We have Twitter at That Made Your. We're on Instagram, which is perfect for an audio podcast stream, I found. That's on at That Made Your List. NBE Live, which this is wonderfully allowed me to post this out this week with. I say allowed me. It's kind of my baby's NBE Live, so it's But yeah, NBE Live. Search out the Facebook.
You're the father, but Tony's the daddy.
Yeah, he's the CEO. I'm the owner. He's the CEO.
Yeah.
NBE Live. Search out on Facebook. We've got a Facebook page there where everything is posted out. Tony is always posting out game nights or little live streams, this, that, and the other. Yeah, that's it. This has been That Made Your List. He's been Jacoby and he's been Thomas Scully, and we'll be back for the second half of That Made Your List meets the New British Empire.